main event time. Alex Pereira, 7-1, which is a ridiculous record to be champion of the middleweight division in the UFC in 2023, versus Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya, 23-2. He's really been the bane of his existence. Followed him from kickboxing over to MMA. How's this one end up? How's this one go, Keith?
Well, I was on Alex the last time. I'm on Alex again, especially because I took him a few weeks ago, actually, while he was like plus 170. So, I mean, I've had that bet basically like a future bet for a couple of weeks going now. Um, I think if Izzy beats Alex, then they absolutely have to make a movie about Izzy, like a Rocky style movie, because coming back after losing 3 times is incredible. But that only happens in the movies, really. Like I wouldn't say Izzy is necessarily the good guy, but where the good guy wins. There's no clear cut good guy, bad guy. But in this rivalry, it feels more like Alex is the villain. And in real life, the villain wins. And he's already won 3 out of 3 times. I think he's going to do it a 4th time. Even though he got wobbled a few times in that last fight, I think he knows that he can go into this and just absolutely knock out Izzy again. He can finish that fight one more time. And, I think you see him go for those finishing shots earlier. I think training with Glover is big for him. That's just more time that he's been able to spend getting better at the grappling. And I could potentially see some moments where he's on top of Izzy, maybe finishing him with some ground and pound, but I think the power advantage obviously is for Alex, and I think he's going to use that power to maybe really finish the job this time around and put Izzy's lights out. So I'm really looking forward to this fight, and I do hope Alex holds on to that belt. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, they say that when you become champion, you get like 30% better. And I guess that's because, you don't have the pressure on your back of, having to attain championships caliber status. So, I think the last fight you saw Alex go, and it was probably his biggest, the biggest pressure moment of his fighting career because, him fighting in glory kickboxing. And, it's not like they had, crazy, like, first world level crowds and he's fighting in front of. And then he also has to, someone made a good point that he's actually had to go out there and, like sit there and wait for Izzy to come out, which has like a super long walkout period. So, all of those things that he had going against him, and also is he going to be able to do it to Izzy now that it's MMA? I mean, and Izzy was like, talking about whether he was going to grapple or not, he was going to do this or was going to do that. Like all of that has now switched, and he was still able to win despite that. And going into the 5th round, it was 3 rounds Izzy, 1 round Pereira. But the 1 round that went to Izzy actually was because he stunned Pereira, because Pereira went a little bit aggressive in the end. I think that was the 2nd round. So if he just stays a little bit more composed and within himself, boom, then that becomes 2-2 going into the 5th. And then you add in the fact that, I think Izzy won one of the rounds. I think he won the 3rd round because Pereira went for a takedown and Izzy was able to, in the scramble, land up on top, and he stayed there for the majority of the round. And because it was so tight the rest of the round, they ended up giving that to Izzy. So if Pereira just doesn't go for that takedown, or it doesn't end up with Adesanya on top, that's potentially another round in the corner of Pereira. So that could go 3-1. And these are all things that, I know it's going back. It's kind of like armchair quarterbacking. But when you think about, what Pereira had going into that fight, and that Izzy kind of had every reason to be on top of the world because he's like, oh, yeah, you beat me in this, but this is my new sport now. This is what I'm a goat in. Come see me here. And then the ego deflation of being there to now having to be like, okay, he's beaten me in over here twice and here. And this is literally like my last claim. And now Izzy's going to have to walk first. He's going to have to wait for Potan, who's going to do the fucking Archer thing and scare the shit out of everyone in the arena. So, I mean, everything that was in Izzy's corner that he was going to win before is no longer there. And now he's got all this pressure added. And then you have Potan, who had, kind of the question marks and then the reason to have nerves. And now I feel like he's up. He's like, listen, even if I lose this, like he's still in a good spot. Not that he's even considering that he's going to lose it at all. But then you add in the additional factor of Glover Teixeira being retired for this camp and being able to focus on him specifically and maybe try and perfect those takedowns so that if he does take him down, he's going to end up in the dominant position. And I know you said it's really hard to learn grappling at 40 years old, and you're correct. But I think Pereira been learning it for the past few years and has one of the best in the world teaching him. And he's going up against a guy who's not that competent in it himself. So for all of those reasons, I think I'm going to go with Potan plus 120, cash that out. And I think he could probably get this one done by finish this time.
Yeah. The major difference like between George and Poton in this one is like Pereira. I don't know if you saw like I'm sure you did. He was in Anderson Silva's corner. You know, through
Mhm.
training with Glover, he's been training with Chuck Liddell and like a lot of these old timers, and he's
And
been
that
doing
picture
that
of him
for
with the Chuck Liddell haircut is scary.
spooky. Yeah, but yeah, he's been going at it for quite some time, and I think now it's pretty beneficial for him to have a Glover in his corner that is no longer fighting. So then he's basically putting all of his focus into Alex Pereira at this point. You know, like that's a fully dedicated Glover Teixeira as a coach. So you know, to have that guy in your corner is going to be awesome for Alex. Looking forward to that fight. It's going to be so sick. So you you want to
Here, I
rip
just hold on.
rundown?
I want to show this real quick.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they
Yeah,
were just
I'm not
training
messing with
together.
I'm not messing with that.